When it gets more interesting, I guess. The House Energy and Commerce Committee holding a hearing today on the overall safety of nuclear power plants following the disaster in Japan. California Congressman Brian Bilbray is on the committee holding the hearing. Congressman, it's good to see you. What are your thoughts? We've been polling different people on the committee. Are you going to press for to move forward? I mean, it's been 30 years. We're already stuck. That's not the question, is whether we should stop. We've already stopped. Do we continue to move forward with this?
You're right. It is sort of funny to see that as soon as there's a tragedy in Washington, you've got people claiming they want a moratorium, as if we haven't had a moratorium for 30 years. You're right. I'm with the president. I'm with the Secretary of Energy on this issue. We should go with science, not with scare tactics. The fact is, not only does America need to have clean, cost-effective energy, the world needs to be brave enough to do the right thing and not allow the scaremongers to scare us away. And I think there's somebody that lives downwind from a nuclear power plant. I feel much better about my children's future having San Onofre than to have the alternative, and that is having a whole lot of energy that can't be depended on the future and can't be depended on not to impact the environment. So I think that we've got to remember, we want to talk about jobs, we got to talk about clean, cheap energy that makes economies run. We got to quit finding excuses to say no and start following the scientists and saying yes.
We're going to hear from the Energy Secretary, Congressman, but are you convinced that regulators have run models that assume an earthquake and a tsunami like the one we've seen in Japan?
Absolutely. In fact, in California, our fault line is on the inland, so the tsunami wouldn't be related to the earthquake. Our tsunami wall is 3 times as high as it was in Japan. Diablo is over almost 8 to 10 times. But the biggest issue is the fact that we have recombiners. If you have the hydrogen problem, you actually have the capability with our design at San Onofre to recombine the hydrogen and make water again. And the other issue is the backup. The Japanese did not have the requirement of the blackout requirements that we have. Our backup generators and our safety system and batteries are sealed in and can operate even if they're inundated with water. So we've designed for the kind of problem that they had, which was not the earthquake. Even their reactors handled the earthquake. It was the tsunami and being inundated. Yeah. Our systems are designed to approach that issue. So the Americans have actually addressed this quite appropriately.
Congressman, should we be concerned by the idea that all of our nuclear plants are at least 30 years old and the technology has improved vastly over those 3 decades?
You're right on the fact that we need to be brave enough to go with next generation as we build out. Instead of saying let's not build any more, we should be saying let's build more, let's build new ones. We're talking about 20 more that we're looking at. It should be 200 more we're looking at, but it should be the new 4th generation technology. We've got gas-cooled reactors. We have technology that, physically eliminates the ability of having these kind of fires and these kind of incidences. We should be encouraging those kind of constructions as quickly as possible, rather than people calling for us to freeze again and continue this absurd moratorium on clean, cost-effective energy that nuclear has been proven to be.
Congressman, this sets up some strange bedfellows, and you mentioned you're with the President and Secretary Chu on this. God forbid something deteriorates in one of these reactors over in Japan. Do you think Republicans want nuclear power. You've wanted nuclear power probably for 30 years, and I don't think it necessarily is your part of it that has prevented that. You think you can count on the resolve of the Obama administration and his constituents to, if something were to worsen there, that to continue to be aligned with you?
Okay, well, first of all, it's not my Republican affiliation. I really kind of came around to nuclear because I was a member of the Air Resources Board in California. I've spent 10 years on an air district board and the Air Resources Board in California. So my conversion is because I see that the alternatives are much more environmentally risky and economically risky. So that's where we're going. But I think the Obama administration could be to nuclear power what Richard Nixon was to China, the opening up of getting people to take a second look at it. And I think think this is someplace that it is President Obama is the person who could make the difference to nuclear power, to a clean energy that not only protects the environment, but actually encourages and is a backbone of a strong economy. And this president, this Secretary of Energy, these are two men that could make a difference, that we look back 10, 20, 30 years from now saying, here's a guy who actually went back and corrected the problems that Jimmy Carter refused to address, and a lot of other presidents refused to address. I think that President Obama is the right guy at the right place, and I think those who always find excuses to say no will look at President Obama and say, you know, maybe we ought to reconsider our prejudice and allow science to determine our policies.
Well, it'll be that when will be interesting to see. You'd be surprised then if the resolve weakens for nuclear, because you can all of a sudden go just to renewable. You can go to solar and wind and start de-emphasizing nuclear. That'd be an easy route for
you can't produce the power that we need to run the economy, and you can't produce water along the West Coast with solar that could then eliminate all the environmental problems we have.
We can't do it without hydrocarbons either, and they're ready to try and get rid of hydrocarbons. It's a little too early too.
Get rid of hydrocarbons.
Make it awfully difficult.
Well, you're gonna,
you haven't seen the EPA? You heard of the EPA? EPA.
You just said we want to get rid of hydrocarbons.
Oh, as quickly as possible.
If they want to do that, then allow them to grow algae around the country rather than having environmental regs.
You don't even like
natural
gas. You don't even
Actually,
want
natural gas is going to be our transition fuel for 20 years.
I know. I'm talking to Carl.
It needs to be a mix. It needs to be a mix. If 20% of our energy, Congressman, is nuclear, what's an ideal percentage in this country?
Well, I think that we should have